Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, our special guest is Professor Pierre Shabal, Director of the Lexfam Laboratory, University of Havre, France. He is also multiple visiting professor at the Faculty of International Relations of Arabic Kazakh National University, and he is co-founder of the European Research Center of the European Law at the Arabic Kazakh National University. Good morning, dear Pierre.
Good morning, добрый день.
Thank you very much for being here today. It is really great pleasure and honor for our channel, IRD News. So how are you?
I'm fine. I'm very intimidated to be interviewed on this channel, and I wish the channel good luck. And I know it's already serving the visibility of the faculty very well.
Thank you very much. And today we are going to discuss some geopolitical issues in the context of the modern security and cooperation. So how do you see the modern architecture of security and cooperation at the Eurasian continent in the context of the changed geopolitical and geo-economic realities?
I think what is new is that Eurasia, as a global space, is again, in historical terms, making sense. Indeed, academic analysis should be the broadening of the time scale, the time perspective. And in this case, over a number of decades is the appropriate time scale, I think, for the new Eurasia. Over the last 30 years, what has happened, what is new, is that Eurasia has opened up. With the Chinese precedent of 1978 and the cross-border dynamics since 1991. What has changed is the reality of creating or recreating a totally new continent from the point of view of geopolitics. Four things are new. One is the cooperation between China and Russia after 40 years of closed borders. We forget the significance of the opening of those borders. What is new, secondly, is their cooperation, those two countries, placed with Central Asia in a common framework, and a number of frameworks, not just the CIS and the SICA, but others. Well, not the CIS for China, but the Shanghai Cooperation is equivalent. We'll come to that. What is new, third, is that numerous countries have become independent and equal partners, equal neighbors, equal partners, notably Central Asia and more South Asia and West Asia. And some have reversed their alliances, the best example being Iran over time, since 1979, of course, but more pointedly in the present, 2005 becoming an observer to the Shanghai Organization, and 2021 becoming a full member of the organization. This is changing the landscape of geopolitics. And Eurasia is structured by a dozen organizations, not just one. The SCO for the new Central Asia, so to speak, SICA for the continent, the CSTO for the hard classic security aspects, the SARS for South Asia, not very active, but still in existence, ASEAN for Southeast Asia, the Organization for Economic Cooperation, created by Iran and others, the Organization of Turkic States, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. So people forget that there is a large number of organizations, which means that the continent is being structured and activated and not just echoing the passing of time. Not to mention, of course, the program of the New Silk Road. We'll come back to that. So this is the new architecture of cooperation. And when there is cooperation, therefore there is security, but a new form of security.
Okay. Thank you. Really interesting. And how is all transforming in the context of multilateral cooperation, and exactly some of the organizations structures you have mentioned just now, for example SICA and CIS, and we are the witnesses of this process just now because of the recent events.
I think it's interesting that we should mention both the SICA and the CIS today, and the reason why we're mentioning both together is that they have just held their summits in the same week, in the same city. And this reminds us of another moment when two major meetings took place in 2015. The SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the BRICS met in Ufa. And this, I think, is a signal of the thriving dynamism of international relations today in the form of multilateral organizations. The message is that multilateralism works. That's what the leaders want to express as a message, and that they agree on current issues through the declarations. But of course, we know that declarations are always more or less consensual, so they don't echo the details of international relations. But that's not their main point. And the main point is that the summits are taking place. They are not cancelled by the short-term dynamics, and no member is pointed out or leaving the organization for whatever contemporary reasons. So what we call multilateral cooperation has meaning in the sense that it is an ideal type. It is not a concrete reality. It is a trend, it is a message, a signal adopted by leaders that they are working together differently from the past. That's meaningful more than the actual details of what they decide, and often they do not decide. This is the very point. Such summits issue declarations, intentions of goodwill. They do not take decisions, but yet they prepare the ground for other forms of meetings where decisions are taken.
Okay, thank you. If to come to the SICA exactly, and how would you outline the key security issues in Asia, and what is the evaluating or new role of SICA, which is celebrating 30 years of its existing and transforming to the full international organization today?
Let me answer in 2 points. One is the significance of SICA, and then the other is the fact that it has existed for 30 years, so the age of the organization, so to speak. I think what is really meaningful about SICA existing is that it is indeed, as the name suggests, creating new forms of interactions. That's the official terminology, which means that neighbors are inventing new ways of interacting together on a wide scale. The organization extends from East Asia to Africa. And in being characterized by such a wide scope of members, SICA acts as an inspirer, as a provider of suggestions and of ideas. It is a forum basically geared towards the possibility of tabling all issues, discussing all issues precisely without committing decisions. This reminds me of 2 other equivalents, I think, in the world. For Europe, this is what the Council of Europe does. The Council of Europe, with a larger membership, of course, than the European Union, tables, discusses, suggests ideas which eventually will find their way into decisions. And this is the best comparison is with the Helsinki process of the Conference for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which really resembles what the SICA is. And for the west part of the continent, what the CSC did was to prepare the way for the normalization of relations between East and West and the end of the Cold War, 20 years before it took place. So what SICA is doing today, or what SICA was doing 10 years ago, becomes significant over time. The historical meaning of SICA is dual. In time, it was proposed early, and in that sense, it is innovative. And continental, pan-continental, 2 differences with CIS. And in space, it is an open membership, and as such, it is very much in tune with the modern form of regionalism.
Thank you.
Let's go to the...
yeah, sure.
Let's go to the meaning of the 30 years which have elapsed since the creation of the SICA. And I think it's very good that we hint or remind ourselves that it was created in 1992. Which is very early at the initiative of Kazakhstan, very early in the post-Cold War. And I think this earliness is a significant factor to create as early as possible, a few months only after the transition from 1991, a forum for discussion. A forum for discussion with an innovative format for engaging countries, and engaging countries without committing them. Engaging without committing is my concept here. Countries, when they join, give a sort of signal, that they are joining one form of the new Asia without giving up their other alliances or their other commitments. I think the best example is South Korea. South Korea became a member of the SICA in 2006, the same year as the Semipalatinsk Treaty of Central Asia, almost the same year as the formation of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Afghanistan Contact Group, and almost the same year as the enlargement of SHOS to 4 observers. So I think when innovations take place, they make sense also together. By becoming a member of SICA, South Korea, in other words, without giving up in any way its alliance with the USA and its defense treaty, started looking to the continent and engaged in what I call the New Asia. So SICA is really the most innovative in the sense that it was formed with an open-ended ambition and after 1991.
Okay, thank you very much. And how about the Commonwealth of Independent States? And thank you for mentioning that 2 summits at the same city, in Astana. So how do you see the role of the CIS in this changed and even already and still changing realities?
I think here for the CIS, my comments will be similar and yet different in the sense that what is new about the Eurasian space is that it has been gradually receiving some coherence and some innovative capacity. In geopolitical terms, it is a center with a growing centrifugal dynamic, so to speak. The CIS, in a sense, cannot be new or cannot create as much newness since it corresponds to a transition forum after the demise of the USSR, a sort of forum to accompany the demise of the USSR. But the CIS can be innovative in the 2 sub-organizations it indirectly created. From the CIS, we have the Eurasian Economic Community to the Eurasian Economic Union, which is the economic offspring of the CIS. And the meaning of the Eurasian Economic Union is to create a capacity for the members to compete with the European Union. So there is an economic competition made possible. The other offspring is the CSTO, the military organization, which is also a way to give coherence to a capacity to be competing with or to be competitive with NATO.
Okay, thank you very much for so comprehensive and informative points and vision. So, what to conclude? What to expect? All of these structures, organizations, which are functioning at the Eurasian continent.
I think, if I may be very naive, and to conclude by a sort of definition, a new definition of Eurasia, as if, to quote from Max Weber's methodology, as if we could look at it from scratch, from the tabula rasa. What do we see when we look at Eurasia today? What we see, and I think that would be a sort of tentative definition, Eurasia is a logistical space with 3 top lanes, with 3 transport lanes, from East Asia to the Atlantic. 1 northern route via Russia, 1 southern route via Kazakhstan to Turkey, and 1 southern route via Uzbekistan to the Middle East. This is what the newborn baby looking at Eurasia today should probably notice from scratch, not forgetting the past, but putting the past in the historical perspective. And from that perspective, my last word will be that all the rest, so to speak, all the rest, organizations, forums, treaties, meetings, and all the geopolitical and political classic dimension is just a framework. For the transport corridors of Eurasia. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, dear Pierre, for so interesting, informative conversation. I think it's really a great contribution to our today's discourse, what we have at our department, larger. So you're very welcome to be our guest again. You're welcome to our department at Al-Farabi. Thank you.
Thank you. Hakmiyet, sağ olunuz.